I truly never expected to have this theory confirmed or denied, and I guess it wasn't in a way, but it was. Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we are going to be taking a look at Kaiju number 8, anime episode 11, as well as Kaiju number 8 manga chapter... Let's see, that was 34. There will be spoilers up to that point. And so if you don't want any, you can click away now. Check out the links below the video to get yourself a copy of my book, Dying Embers, Dragons, Aliens, and Things That Go Boom in the Night. Show, don't tell. Don't hold your audience's hand. Your audience is intelligent enough to consume your work. They're intelligent enough to take hints, to read implications. But you don't want to be so obscure so that what you meant is shrouded in mystery. You don't want to be too deliberately obscure. These conflicting pieces of writing advice are one of the great balancing acts that a good writer needs to do, and where Matsumoto goes from good writer into great writer. Matsumoto left so much to percolate through your imagination in the manga. The manga is a clean, stripped down story with no extra fluff. Matsumoto doesn't hold your hand. Matsumoto leaves things to be assumed, leaves things to be logically inferred from a logical situation. For instance, Matsumoto never told us that when Kafka was intaked into the Defense Force, he had physicals done. Anybody who knows anything about any military organization knows that going in, you get a basic physical. It's not a huge battery of really invasive medical tests, but it would be enough to tell whether you're human or not. Are you overweight? Do you have heart disease? So Matsumoto didn't tell us that Kafka had all of that done when he came in. Therefore, it was really unusual that no one spotted that he was a kaiju. Obviously, Kafka did have those tests done going into the Defense Force, and in both the manga and the anime, the Matsumoto trusts us to understand that that happened, therefore trusts us to understand that the kaiju presence in Kafka is something that's really difficult to detect medically. Then, from the clue that the only way to tell that he's not fully human is from an x-ray, Matsumoto trusted us to understand that the reason that it had to be an x-ray and not an MRI or a blood test was that X-rays, being light, refract through different materials differently. So the X-rays would show that even though the Kafka's core was perfectly heart-shaped, it was made of a different material because the X-rays refracted through it differently than they would through a human heart. That is given more detail in the anime. All in all, the anime does expand on things and give us more detail than the manga did. This helps pad the runtime, but in a very logical way. For such a streamlined manga story that leaves so much to the logical deduction of the audience, there is a lot to fill out in the anime. Way back 3 years ago, after chapter 34 dropped, I did a whole video about the true dark reason that the Defense Force was deliberately splitting up Reno, Aiharu, and then Pretty Boy and Military Boy, because these were the 4 closest friends that Kafka had. It was obvious, given how close the 3rd Division was to Kafka, given how hard they were all fighting for Kafka, it was obvious that these were the 4 who, if they were going to cause trouble, if anybody was going to cause trouble over what the Defense Force might decide to do to Kafka, it was going to be these 4. And if they were left together in the confidence of their own division with the rest of Kafka's friends, they might cause trouble. So, separating them made perfectly logical sense from the Defense Force perspective. Of course, that's not what was said in the manga. In the manga, Mina simply gives them the statement that this was in response to the rising and increasing kaiju threats, and they wanted the rookies to be trained cross-divisionally to create greater unity throughout the Defense Force and to improve their skills in ways that they couldn't do at the devastated Tachikawa base. But it was pretty obvious to me, the manga reader, that there was also a darker reason, that the Defense Force wanted these for buddies separated so they didn't do something stupid and like try to rescue Kafka if the word came on down that Kafka was going to be executed, or if they got a hint that Kafka was going to be executed. And I never really thought that I was going to have that theory confirmed or denied, because in the real life, that's not something that anyone says aloud. No, and Matsumoto is a writer who sticks very closely to real life, especially with human interactions. So I did not think that at any point we were going to have a Defense Force officer step up and say, "Oh yeah, we separated you two from the from the 3rd Division and from each other, specifically so because we wanted to keep an eye on you because you were so close to this human who actually turned out to be a kaiju, and we want to make sure all you aren't kaiju too, or that you're not going to go try to rescue him." No. And that's not what happened. That would have been completely out of character. That would have been too far against the reality of how these situations actually work for Matsumoto to have done. But the anime very cleverly works in an implication. I'm not entirely sure why they felt the need to. I thought even in the anime, it was still pretty obvious. But the anime gives you less time to marinate. You've got 10 chapters worth of manga going into one episode of anime, so maybe they thought that they needed to state it a little bit more explicitly. So they have the rookie, who is the most used to political maneuverings, the rich boy whose dad has all of these government projects and who understands how these backdeal government deals work. They have him ask the question. So Mina tells him they're going to be separated for training purposes, and he goes, "Is this about Kaiju number 8? And everybody goes, "What?" He goes, "Are we being separated because the Defense Force suspects us and wants to keep an eye on us because we're Kaiju number 8, Kafka's friends?" And he just straight flat out says, "I'm not accepting that if that's it." Basically, he's not going to let himself be put in a position where he can't defend Kafka if he needs to. And Mina gives this very political non-answer. She goes, "This has been in planning for a while." Maybe it was, but this was definitely the catalyst. Kaiju number 8 was definitely the catalyst. And she really drives home how much they need new, more powerful responses to the growing kaiju threat. Because Kaiju number 2 was only showed up in 1972. And then everything kind of evened out at Kaiju number 7. And then we went from Kaiju number 8 to Kaiju number 9 to Kaiju number 10 in the course of just a few months. So these incidences are increasing. And so it's a good argument, and the rookies respond to it, and they all agree to be split up and do their training, even though this was a very close-knit group of friends. So this does not confirm my theory that that was what the Defense Force was thinking. However, it does confirm my theory in that it was the most obvious thought for someone who understands political motivations and maneuvering and was in that situation. Honestly, can't say, "Theory confirmed, I knew it all along," even though I have that video from 3 years ago explicitly stating the same theory that Rich Boy states. But I can say that my theory that that was the most obvious conclusion in the moment is confirmed. So what do you think, my wonderful viewers? What was the goal in splitting up those particular 4 rookies to break up and keep an eye on everybody who was close to Kafka and Kaiju number 8? Or do Rich Boy and I simply have the same kind of paranoia? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button to please the almighty algorithm, and peace out, my wonderful viewers.
Drake McCarty's leg was shattered, deep in the wilderness. As the flash flood closed over him, something alien pulled him from the waters. A military base that shouldn't exist. An ancient warrior with secrets of his own. Drake returns to his family with a whole leg and the burden of a secret he doesn't understand. In the forest around them, someone is watching, and something followed him home. Flying Sparks. 90,000 words of science fantasy adventure. The first novel in the Dying Embers universe is now available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo by Rakuten, Google Play Books, and from the author as a signed copy. Get your copy now and step into a world where dragons walk the forest, aliens lurk on the mountain, and things go boomp in the night.
Escape into another world with the writings of author Betty Adams. Two worlds, one of utter absurdity, one of dramatic tension, both alike in aliens absolutely astounded by human behavior. Humans are weird, short, absurd science fiction stories. Flying sparks, dragons, aliens, and things that go boomp in the night.
Books available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo by Rakuten, Google Play Books, and at authorBettyAdams.com for a signed copy.